Hello, sim racers. I'm live again, streaming here for Assetto Corsa Competizione. And tonight, I'd like to, first of all, understand if you can hear me well and if the mic is okay. So let me know on the comments if you can hear me all right, or if you have any issues like we had last time. I'll get better into this, so bear with me, and we will make it. Right. So, is it okay, everybody? Can I have a confirmation that the mic works decently enough this time? Right. So what we're going to do today? Today we are going to. Okay. So yeah, the mic is good. So let's go. So tonight we are going to talk about how to understand your car. And to do this, we will start with also understanding if we are driving correctly or not. So we will going to do a little bit of introduction into racing lines, into why using all the track width is so important, where you can watch and learn this thing. So and also we are going to do a little bit of theory about how the tires work and how the car layout uh, make the car behave differently, no, and what you should expect from one car to the other. So okay, let's get start into that, and let's go directly into the simulator. Right, so we are going for this first test. We're going to use a Nissan GTR, the Godzilla, as they say, and we're going to go at Misano. So Misano is a pretty tricky circuit. It's it has some easy turns, but it also has many tricky situations, many tricky sectors that you have to learn. But we're not going to focalize too much to the tricky sectors. Maybe this is material for another stream. We're going to understand how we need to uh, use all the width of the track right now. So I'm going to use the safe preset for now, and then we'll see how we're gonna what we're gonna do while driving. Right. So in we go. Launch control on. So keep your foot down. Release the clutch slowly, and we're going. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna try to do a descent lap. Let me change the DLC so display here so I can see my revs because I prefer with my revs on. So now we're gonna do a descent lap where we're gonna use much of the track's width and see what lap time we do. Nothing too fancy. Probably gonna be our second lap here. All right. So what I'm going to do now, as I said, is I'm going to use the whole track width as much as I can do. You see, I'm staying out here, go into this turn. All right. And let's see what track time we can do by doing the basics. Nothing more, nothing less, nothing too fancy. I'm sure that Aliens... it's clipping again. What is clipping? Alright, so they're telling me that the mic again clips. So let's fix that first. And then we can do the rest. So give me a second, because I don't want you to lose your ear. Okay, let's go back. And let's lower a little bit this. And maybe lower a little bit the sound outputs too. All right. Okay, let me know if this is better for you now. Okay, let's go back in and drive. So maybe a tiny bit more, because you guys are so sensitive on your ears. All right. Okay, so back again. And we just ruined this lap, but no problem. We'll do another one. Right. So as I was saying, I will try to use the whole track width. Let me know if the microphone is a little bit better now, by the way. Okay, so I'll try to keep my voice down and not scream too much. It's better for my neighbors too, so better that way. Okay, let's do this first lap. In here, the whole track in second gear. Tiny bit of clipping on the curbs there, not too much because it will unbalance your car. Hey, first gear here, short shift to second, stay wide and in again. Maybe you can raise a little bit. Alright. Second gear here, right here. Misano is a track where you have to cut as much as possible. All the drivers cut a lot, and the race direction also let them cut a little bit more than usual in all the other tracks. So practically curbs are still track here. Hello everybody, nice to see so many people joining on the chat. Fifth gear here, very tricky this turn, but this is a safe setup, so it's pretty cool. Alright. Can hear the traction control entering a lot. A tiny bit of lift here because of the understeer character of the car. We'll talk about that later. Alright. Wasn't so good of a lap, but let's see what we did. Should be around 36.8. I don't like it. Let's do another one. A little bit faster, maybe. You can see up right, sorry, up left, how the delta is gonna get better now. Short shift to second here. Stay close to the right side and cut all the way. Okay, not much of a lap, but I'm also getting better now. That's it. Again, not too bad. Hello everybody. Always start with the brake pad 2. You practically don't need to use any other pad. This is more than enough for everything, but we'll talk about that in another stream. Alright. Okay, so almost done with this lap. Nothing too impressive. Now what I'm gonna do is in just two turns, I'm gonna try to brake a little bit on the inside. So pretty much the same as before. Watch always at the top left my delta. I'm not doing anything strange. You see the delta is now at 1/10 of a second faster for now. Let's try to keep it there. Okay, I'm losing a little bit, no problems. I'm at about 1/10 of a second faster, but it's okay. Now I will be a little bit on this side, so not all the track width. Here, brake, 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 and you see I can't go in. So I've lost time, and I'm losing a lot of time now. All right. So just one turn, and I've lost like half a second because I wasn't exactly on the outside of the road. We'll do it again on the last turn. On the last turn I will be a little bit on the inside. And let's see how slower I'm gonna be on the whole lap. So now I'm 7/10 of a second slower. I'm not losing time anymore. Let's do the same here as before. I was even a little bit faster. Alright. That's fine. Some 7/10 of a second slower. There's normal. Oh, I went wide. Okay, sorry about that. And I'm gonna be a little bit in here. You see, unbalance the car, going even wide, and I'm losing lots of time right now. Lots of time. So, before that I did a 36 something, now I did 37.3. So, what happened here is that I've lost almost a second by taking badly just 2 turns. Let's see this in the replay. So, in this lap time, and one thing that you should do also is that you should get your replays or a replay of another driver that you know it's pretty good, and you should analyze it. So let's see it from the external camera, and you can see how much I try to take advantage of the whole width of the road, right? So apex as in as possible, out again, apex again, all the width of the road in the exit. So look at here, look at this turn. I will go as wide as possible on the right here, brake, 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 and then get in. All right. Even though I did a little mistake, still it was pretty decent. Now let's see the same on the next lap, where, as I told you, I didn't want to take advantage of the whole width of the road. So this is the next lap. All right. And here I am. You see, I have more or less one car width to gain. I'm losing one car width of track width, and I go in and I can make. You see, I can make very well the curb, and I'm going wide here, and you can see that I have tons of understeer, and so I have to raise my foot, and I'm losing tons of time right here. This is what you have to see on your laps. You have to take care and see, okay, I just did my best lap. Did I really took advantage of the whole track width? Yes, no, no. Why not? Why I didn't do that? Is there something that I didn't understand? Is it because I didn't took properly my brake marks? Is it because I didn't have marks for the turn in? Because you have to put marks everywhere. Look the same at the last turn here. So on the lap before, I was as wide as possible. Look at that. You see, I'm as wide as possible here. You see, as wide as possible. Braking here at the 50 mark and in. Perfect apex and out. This is what you have to look for. Same thing on my last lap. As I said, yeah, okay, I did an error here, but forget about that. The issue was here. You see, one car width, not taking advantage of the whole width of the road. Braking, not so good, but you see, I managed to take the apex, but I was slower, and the car was unstable. All right, so this is what you should do, and why you should do this. So let's go in and do some. Let's go in and do some theory about it. All right, good. So here I have a screenshot from above of Misano. I hope that you can look at it, and let's see if you can. I'm not sure if you can see yet. I think so. Not yet, maybe. Let me check if I managed to do this properly. Yeah. Okay. Right. So here we have Misano. All right. This is the last term. What I want to show you is the difference the different lines, racing lines, make. Right. So how about we do the most inner line that we can do? Okay. So let's do this. So this is the inner line. Okay. We could do this as a line, and we could take this entry, do that, and this trajectory will have a radius that will give us a circle like that. Okay, and this is the exit line. So why don't we do this? We can do another trajectory, right? We could do this kind of trajectory. Now this is the outermost line. So all the way to the outside. And as you can see, this is the entry and this is the exit. And it's a much bigger radius. Bigger radius means that for the same grip, you can go faster. And going faster means that you can enter faster, so you have to brake later. You can brake later and gain time, make the whole turn faster, and exit faster, which means that the whole speed that you have on your exit, you gain it for the whole straight line that follows after the turn. So it's a lot of time to gain. Okay, so can we do a different line that has even a bigger radius? And by how much? Of course, everybody, I guess, knows that the best line would be to enter wide, go into the apex here, and exit wide again. But by how much the radius is bigger in such a situation? So let's have a look. All right, where is it? So here it is. And actually, I lost also something I wanted to show you. So let's go to the second page, which is better, maybe. Let's close this a little bit so that you can see it. And I'll get this and go back so that you can have a better look at it. Right. Okay. So here it is. Let me have a better fix of that, because I thought I had prepared everything, but that's the nice thing of the as I say, of the live, of the stream. All right. So this is the perfect line. Okay, look how much bigger it is than everything else. It is the difference is incredible. I mean, look at here. Those are parking lots, which means it's about 6 meters by 3 meters wide. This is the difference. You see, this is the exit, this is the inner cycle, and this is the correct racing line. And even the line that we did before, which is wrong, it's still smaller by quite a bit of a margin. So have a look at that. This is the wrong racing line that we did on our last lap. Okay, so that was the difference. Can you see here? That's the difference. One, more or less one car. Okay, let me hide everything else so that you can have a better look. Okay, that's it. So the green is the perfect line. The orange is the line that we did the little mistake, that we wanted to do that mistake. So we entered a little bit on the inner side. And the difference between them is, as you can see here, 3 parking lots. The difference in radius is 3 parking lots. This is a lot. So it's a lot of speed that you are losing. So what I wanted to say with all this thing, so when you're listening that an alien or a better driver is faster than you by 2 seconds, all right, and you're like, oh my god, where am I going to find 2 seconds? It's impossible to find 2 seconds. Okay, here's the situation. If you are not using the whole width of the road with extreme precision, all right, and I'm not meaning by one, I'm not meaning by that. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, so I do not mean this. This is a lot. Okay, I mean this, which I did before. Okay, so a driver like me will be here. The alien will be on the line, for example. And what does this mean? This means that in a circuit with 10 turns, just 10 turns, okay, If an alien gets on every turn 2/10 of a second, just 2/10 of a second, at the end of the lap, it's 2 seconds. It's 2 seconds. So the difference between you and the faster driver, it's minimal, and that's why it's minimal, and that's why it's so difficult. It's difficult because you really have to take care of all the little details. This is where the aliens gain time on us. You have to take care of all the little details, the tiny little details, to catch up by 1/10 of a second every time on every turn. And 1/10 of a second on every turn is really very, very hard and very difficult to do, but it is possible to get better. All right, cool. So right, so but there are some other things that aliens do better than us, and we need to understand what's going on. And to understand that, we need to understand what the car is telling us. And as you know, there are different kind of cars, and different kinds of cars means that you have cars with front engine, you have cars with mid engine, and you have cars with rear engine placement. And all of those cars act differently when you brake, when you are turning in, and when you are accelerating again. All right, and we saw that here. Let's see if I can find the moment. Yeah, exactly, right here. So this is a front engine car, all right? So I've missed the entrance by a lot. Look at that. I couldn't make the turn, so I had to brake a lot, and that put me really wide. Let's see that from like that. You see? You see even the skid marks here I'm leaving because I was braking way too hard, and even the ABS wasn't able to deal with it. So why is this happening? Well, two reasons. One is that you're arriving too fast. All right, and when you're arriving too fast, you can do whatever you want, but it doesn't really matter. Tires have a specific grip, and they can give you as much as possible, and that's it. After you go over the limit, it's not that they can make miracles. That's where they're going to stop, and that's what's going to happen. Now, depending on the car, if you have much weight at the front, everybody know that it's gonna try to go straight. If you have too much weight on the rear and you still have lateral grip at the front tires, then it might want to spin. So let's make let's see how this actually happens, all right, in the simulator. So let's change here. I hope you guys can see everything. All right, so let's still have a go on the Nissan. Another go, so we can try to push the Nissan way too hard. All right, and see what happens in some terms if I brake too late and I try to. You see, if I try to turn and keep my foot on the brake, and please watch on the pedals at the right bottom of the screen. See how I keep too hard on the brake zone, and I will try to turn a little bit too much. And I've seen many sim racers doing that. So brake, keep braking, and it goes straight, you see? And when it goes straight, many times instead of releasing a little bit, they keep braking even more because they are way too fast, like that, you see? Ooh, I can't, that is of course exaggerated, but if I keep turning, it's not like the car will turn even more. I also see many people, turning a lot the wheel and complaining, oh, but I can't feel the car, I can't feel understeer, what is happening, and everything is blunt. And in a minute, I will explain this to you. But mainly, even at this very, whoa, that got me out. So, even in those fast turns or slow turns, this car usually wants to go straight. It wants to understeer. See that again? It wants to understeer. brake hard here a bit out of shape, and whoa, goes right away straight. Okay, if I don't release the brake, I will just go straight on. Right, let's get an Audi, typical mid-engine car, and see how it behaves. So change this, go in here. Where's the Audi? Audi. Oh, I've lost the Audi. Audi Sport. That's it. Pop, 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 pop. Oh, that's a nice library. All right. In again. Okay. So let's do the exact same thing. So I would just leave the um, safe setup, which should be, decent enough. And I will do the same thing, and let's see what happens. Right, so braking here, going in. Well, and you can see how already the car wants to, switch the rear end with the front. Already oversteering. And brake again. You see how when the front end finally gets some grip, the rear end starts to come around. Okay. And brake again. Oh, okay, brake. This time it went a little bit forward and had some understeer, but as you see before that, that's it. You see, oversteer. So the tendency of the car is to always oversteer. Okay. I guess the demonstration is pretty evident, but I'd like to explain you why this is happening, and it is hammer time. So this was an explanation I said to a guy in an Italian group, and people loved it, and I find it pretty clear myself. So let's see why this is actually happening. So let's leave this replay here, and in the meantime, we can talk about it. Right, so let's think this as your car, okay? This is your car. This is where it points, and you are going that way, down. It's easier like this to understand. And you have a front engine car, so all the weight is here at the front. So whatever you do to turn around the car, you see, it wants to go back and, go down, go to the same direction with the weight pointing, obviously, down, always. Also, if the rear end goes away, it's easy to get it out of shape, but it's also easy to control it. You see, it's very easy to control the weight at the back because it's light. It doesn't have too much resistance. All the weight is down here. So I guess this is easy to understand, right? So let's say you're here. You see, it's easy to do this and control it. It's no big deal. So that's the front engine car. This is the rear engine car. So you're still going down, you're still braking, and you're trying to steer. Now, every time you try to steer, look at this. The tendency is to completely spin. This is what happens when you have the weight at the rear, right? And also when the rear weight, when the whole thing wants to spin, it's harder to maintain the balance. You see, because if you send it on the other side, it wants to go from the other side too. It's the typical snap that you have. So you're going into the turn, the rear goes away, and you try to counter steer, and it snaps and goes the whole other way, and you spin on the other side. So you see, if it starts to spin like this, it goes to go down, and you try to control it, you overshoot it, and whoop, it goes from the other way. That's why the rear ends in cars are so tricky to maintain when they start to slide from the rear end. Obviously, I know that you're asking, okay, why then we make cars with the weight at the rear? Well, a couple of reasons. First of all, braking is important because when you brake and you already have lots of weight at the front, right, you have a very light rear, and the rear tires can't brake a lot, okay, because they tend obviously to lock because they do not have enough load. So if you move the weight at the back, you brake, the weight shifts a little bit, but still maintains the rear tires down, so you can brake in a smaller braking zone, in shorter braking zone. The other thing which is also very very important is agility. So if you have a front car and you want to change direction, you need some force. So you need lots of grip at the front, right? You need force, and it's difficult because, as you can see, you have plenty of weight here, so it's difficult to rotate the car. Okay. On the other way around, with the engine at the back, it's very easy. You see, it's really very easy to change direction. So mid-engine cars are much more agile than front-engine cars. Okay, so this is why, depending on what car you're using, you're gonna have to understand what the car is telling you, and you're gonna also have to work with the setup, okay, and find out, right, what can I do to make the car better. All right. Okay. So we were talking also about the situation with the tires and why some people do not feel much, and why you have the cars that they are sliding away once you're going away from the limit, and so on. So I would like to show you another thing that I have prepared about this, and so this time I want to show you how tires generate grip. All right. I don't know if you can guys still see what I'm doing here. Let me check also on the live if everything is correctly. Okay. Should be in a minute. Yeah. Okay. So here we have it. Right. So how tires generate grip? It's going to be very simplistic. I'm not going to go into lots of depth, but I think that in that simple way we can also understand what is going on. So this is how a tire generates grip. Okay, which means that when you want to turn, okay, and you need to turn by 10 degrees, okay, you turn your steering wheel, and your wheels are turning, but you're not turning your steering wheel to turn your wheels by 10 degrees. You need to provoke some sliding on the wheels, lateral sliding, so that they can generate grip and turn the car. So if you have to do a turn of 10 degrees, you need to turn to about 20 degrees if you have a road tire. This is the curve that the tires generate, uh, and this is road tires. So let's say that, again, this is very simplistic. Let's say that you want to generate 1.1 G, lateral G. Okay, 1.1 lateral G. Road tire should slide, it has a peak to generate the maximum force. You can see it here, okay, here. This maximum force of 1.2 G, which is, it doesn't work like that, but let's say this for now. So it generates this kind of lateral force at around 9 degrees. This is more or less what a simple rod tire does. So you need to slide your tires to 9 degrees, okay, and then the car starts turning. If you go over this and you exceed this and you go to 10, 12, 15, you lose some grip. So it is important for the good drivers to remain as close to the peak of the lateral force or the longitudinal force that the tire can give, because this is where you have all the force. This is where you generate the maximum grip. If you go over that, then you're losing some grip. Now, on a street tire, you do not lose lots of grip. So even if you exceed this, so let's say that you have to turn like that. If you exceed this by 3 degrees, so you go like this, okay, you're losing, but you're not losing too much. So the car still turns, you know. If you do that, so you can go back and forth from the peak, okay. So you can go back and forth. You go here and you can go here, okay. So when you go back and forth, you can do a movement like this and still go around the peak and still generate enough traction, and you can feel the traction and you can work with it. Okay. So what is going on now? So sorry, which means that this is the limit of play that you have. You see, the limit of play to stay close to the peak is more or less this ample. Okay, this the whole thing is more or less this. It's quite a bit of a range that you have to play with. Okay, which means the car does something and you can still control it because you have time and it permits you to do lots of movement and you can still controlling, and the whole thing comes back to you as feedback because you can see what it happens and you can still catch it, and you don't have any situations like, oh, what the fuck has happened, I just did that and I've lost the car. Okay, cool. So what happens with the slick tire? Right, this is a slick tire, and yet, as you can see for yourself, things are getting pretty difficult now. So the red graph is the slick tire. What does that mean? It means that the peak is much higher. So obviously it generates much more grip, right? Which means at the same turn you also go with a higher speed. So everything comes to you faster. But that's not all. The only thing. Not only it generates higher uh, grip, but the peak for the GT3 tires, by the way, is somewhere around 4 and 5 degrees. Just 4 and 5 degrees to generate tons of lateral grip. Okay? Uh, so to do the same turn at much higher speed, instead of doing that, you have to do this. You have to do this. Okay? It's half the situation on your steering wheel. And not only that, but uh, the amount of range you have to play with if you go a little bit over or under the peak is much shorter. You see it here. The range is really minimum, and I've made this to show you the minimum range. It's practically half than the one, even less than half than the one of the road tire, which means that in ACC with GT3 cars, when you are like that, and you are going a little bit over the limit, your play is just this. If you go and do something like that, where I've seen many people doing this, then you are so farther away of the peak of the tire that you don't feel anything anymore. Everything is flat because you're down here. You see, you're down here. You're down here, and nothing changes here. This is flat. So you have people saying, "Oh, but I'm driving ACC and I feel nothing at all. This is completely flat. It doesn't give me any feedback at all." It doesn't give you any feedback at all because you're already in the flat place of the grip curve. If you want to feel something, you need to stay close to the limit. So once you see and you feel the car, and you really need to do small movements, fast, many, but small movements. When you feel that, it doesn't make any sense at all to continue insisting. You have to go back and you have to play with your pedals. This is where the magic happens. So as I show you here, the range is so narrow, and not only it's narrow, but the loose of the grip is much more important. See here, in the straight tires or the semi-slick tires, which are similar, or the old AC1 tires, right? In AC1 tires, we didn't have the peak at 4 degrees, you know, because we didn't have this kind of data. In AC1, the limit was at around 7-8 degrees, so it was still wider. So in ACC, we know from Pirelli that the limit is at about 4 to 5 degrees. And the range to keep to the limit is much narrower. And not only that, if you go over the limit, the loss of grip is much higher. So if you go over the limit and you're not able to regain control to tell the car, stay there where you are, you're going to lose so much grip that the car inevitably will go wide much faster or will spin around much faster. This is why some people that have issues of controlling this kind of cars, they are complaining because I can't feel the car, I can't catch the slides, I can't do anything. The answer is you can, but you have to be much more precise and you have to be much faster with your inputs. You have to wake up yourself and tell yourself that, okay, I'm here, I feel something going on, this is where I have to play, I have to play here. If you look on boards from the real drivers, you see them that they are moving the steering wheel, but they are moving it in a small range. They say they are like that. Yeah, I have to catch the car there. Because if you go there, this is the flatness. This is the flatness. You can see it here on the graph. There's nothing you can do about that. So if you stay here and you're like, the car doesn't steer anymore and I feel nothing. Yeah, you are overriding so much that you are now in the flatness, the flat planes, as we say. So this is something very important. Okay, right. Now that we know that, we can start analyzing what to do on a turn. And by analyzing what you can do on a turn, you can learn what to do on your car. Okay, because it is very important. It doesn't make any sense to start changing the setups of the car if you don't understand what the car is telling you. And to do so, this is my kind of technique. You might have others, but this is pretty much what everybody is doing also in reality. So what we do, let's go back to this particular turn. It's almost a 90 degrees turn. It's very simple, no big deal here. We do that. Well, as you know, we have to do the most wide radius line as is possible for this turn. So I've made the racing line here. Okay, this is the racing line, let's say. It's true that depending on the turn, sometimes you have to go in a little bit earlier, sometimes you have to go out, turn in, turn out a little bit later. But let's say that it is completely geometric here. Let's not make the things very difficult. So I am okay. Let me right. So what I do is I'm going to separate my turn into four different sectors. Four different sectors. So the first one, of course, is the braking zone. And this red zone, you can see it here. Okay. This red line is the braking zone. You just have to position your car as wide as possible, brake as hard as possible, and with the GT3 cars, there is a good thing because you can just smash the brake pedal, right? The ABS will take care of everything for you. Those are modern cars, so you really have to go as hard as possible on the brake and let the ABS do its job. The only thing that you have to be careful is depending on the grip of the asphalt, you might need to play a little bit with the ABS level. So if the track is green, so it has not too much grip, then maybe you need something like ABS level 5 or 6. If the track is very well rubbered, so many cars have gone through the track, then you can have something like ABS level 3. You can also use something like ABS level 2, but that makes turning a little bit more difficult. We will talk about that maybe later or in a different stream. But for now, let's assume that you have a whatever ABS level. You go into the braking zone. You have to be very careful where your brake mark is because driving, racing, driving fast is all about taking your marks, having reference points. This is all about it. 80% of going fast is technique. And technique means finding reference points for everything. Means do I start my braking? Where do I turn in my steering wheel? Where do I start releasing my brake? Where do I apex? Where do I start to give acceleration, and where do I exit? You have to make reference points about everything. Good pilots even make reference points where they change gear in the straight line, because if they go a little bit earlier or a little bit later from their changing gear reference point, then they know that they had some issues on the last corner exit, or they were too good on the last corner exit, so they try to do it again the next time. So driving is all about reference points. You want to get better 80%, then we have another 10% of experience and another 10% of talent. Not everybody is the same, but 80% is take reference points, use them, be very precise about them, and you see that you will get better. Sorry about that. Right, so braking zone, straight as possible, ABS foot down, ABS working, no problems. Now start the problems. First turn in. So as I told you, the tires give a certain grip. The grip is longitudinal, so you're braking, so you're asking all the possible grip you can have, when you're going longitudinal, and also lateral. Now the key here is tires cannot give you the maximum of both ways. You cannot have the maximum of longitudinal and the maximum of lateral. When you start asking something else, then something else must give in. So until now, until the red line, we were asking 100% of longitudinal grip of the tires. Now in the orange line, we are starting to turn in. When you start to turn in, you have to start releasing slowly your braking pressure, because you are asking your tires not only longitudinal grip but also lateral grip. So lateral grip is going up. To do so, you have to release your braking pressure. In that place is where the aliens are very good at it. Very good at it. This is where they gain those valuable tenths of a second, okay, on each turn. And it is a hard situation. It takes lots of practice. It takes lots of things and good reference points. Now, with this kind of cars, the GT3 cars, well, normally with normal cars, you would take this orange line up to the apex. All right, so you would brake, release the braking slowly, turn until you hit the apex. So you help also the car rotate a little bit, and then you go on the accelerator and exit the turn. With the GT3 cars and generally all the cars that are extremely sensitive in terms of aerodynamics, this is not always something to do. And if you're not alien level people, I would advise you to do something different. I would advise you to turn in, all right, release the brake a little bit to help the car still low at the front and turn in, but at some point around at the mid sector between turning in and the apex, you go into the coast zone, the yellow. So you release completely your foot from the braking and you go coasting. You don't touch the pedals anymore. And I know that everybody now is saying, oh, but what are you saying, Aris? I'm going to spin, the car will come around, or I'm going to go straight. No, you won't. No, you won't. This is the new era. This is aerodynamics in the play. If you release the brakes, the car will flatten, all right? The aerodynamics will go proper balance as you have them when you're going straight, and the car will stabilize. And we will show you this in a moment. So there are two things that are going to happen. If the car spins, then you released way too abruptly with too much steering, and we will show this in a moment. If you go straight, then you arrive to the turn way too fast, way too fast. The correct thing is that you are turning in, you're releasing the brake, and you feel just a hint of understeer. You feel just almost going to make it, right? And usually what you're doing there is keep the pressure on the brakes to make the turn because you think you need less speed. This is when you feel that hint of understeer. This is where you release the brake completely, and you let your tires off the longitudinal grip, and they can give you the whole lateral grip. And by doing so, you can make the turn. So this is what we're going to explain right now: the orange and the yellow sector. So let's go and do it. All right. So where are we? Let's go back and get our trusty Godzilla again. Are you enjoying it, guys, until now? Is it good for you? Let's get, where's the Nissan, there it is. Here we are. Okay. All right. So let's load. How is it, guys? Do you find it interesting? In a minute, we're gonna have some, questions and answers about it. All right. So I'll keep the setup safe, as we said. I won't change anything because I want just to focus on the driving. So let's go in and let's start. All right. Let's go in. Let's first put some heat on our tires, of course. So again, you're gonna need 1 lap or 2, depending on the circuit, depending on the car. Braking, releasing. You see how I released? Car releasing. You see, car completely stable. I don't have to do anything at all. Okay, let's brake again here very hard. So hard on the brakes. Oops. And releasing. You see, I was going way too wide and I still managed to catch the car even if the tires are still not up to hit. Let's do this again on the next turn, which is a very, very long left-hander. So I will brake and release. So brake, modulate, release, release, way. You see, I went wide, means I was way too fast. So if I went wide, I was way too fast. Let's try it again here. Brake and release. See, completely stable. I don't have to do anything at all. The car doesn't spun on me. If I go slightly on the brakes, then I should be more careful, because this is where the car points in and the aerodynamics unbalance the whole car. This is something that the aliens can do and they're very good, but if you're not an alien, do as I do. In, release. Even here, the car is completely stable. Again, now we have also some temperature on our tires, so let's try this. Release. You see? The nose tucked in, so the nose goes in, but the car remains stable because the aerodynamics take care of everything. So again, braking, in, release, in. You see, I didn't move my steering wheel, but the car went in. Let's see what happens if I stay on the brakes. So, brake, 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 brake. Whoa, completely wide. You see that? Completely wide. I'll do the same on the next turn, down to this straight. So, I will keep braking. I will try to modulate, but I will keep braking. So, brake, 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 modulate. Okay, that was not bad. I managed to make the turn. Probably I've arrived way too slow. But I want to show you what happens when you release the brake without moving the steering wheel. So, you see? I have more steering. When I release the brake, I have more steering wheel. So let's see this again in a replay. I think there was a point where it was really, really very clear about it. Okay, so I think it goes around here. So let's go here slow in playback speed, something like that. And I want you to have a look at the steering wheel, and you will see that I remained with the same angle. I didn't try to force to get in. I just released a little bit the braking zone. So have a look down here on the braking zone, and you will see. So let's go back. We'll need some time. Okay, so that this whole thing hides. Okay, so you can see it hide. Look here at the again. Come on, come on, come on. Go on. All right. Braking, steering, release the brakes, and the car goes in. You see how the car really slides in? Okay. So again, the same here. Steering, no brakes at all. Right? And the car goes in. Let's see another point where we did the same, probably here. I'm not sure. I don't remember here if I went wide or not. And here I release the brakes. No, I didn't. This was the example to not release the brakes. So let's go back and find a different. Yes, probably here somewhere. Where was I? Yeah, here. No? I don't remember anymore. Right, here. So steering and brake. Look at that. Brake, full brake, ABS kicking, steering, modulating the brake, and now release the brake. The car has still lateral grip. I can give even more steering, and the car stays stable. Okay? Nice, very good. So you're saying, yes, of course, Aris, but this is the safe setup. What happens with the aggressive setup or even something bigger? No problem. I'll show you. So return to the garage. All right. Setup, aggressive setup. That should be harder. Right. Let's do it. All right. Brake. Coasting. No problem at all to control the car. You see? Completely stable. Whenever I'm coasting, obviously, with, as you saw, I had a big oversteer moment here, cold tires, but obviously aggressive setup, which rotates the car much more under acceleration. But the whole thing remains, which means that when I'm going into the turn and I'm arriving fast, I go off the brakes and the car remains stable. This is extremely important to understand. Look at this. Second gear, release the brakes. Oh, look at that lateral grip. I could even go on the accelerator much sooner. I didn't, but I could do it. Look at that. Braking. First gear. No problem. The car is stable. I even moved the steering wheel around. Car completely stable. So why I'm saying all of that? It is very important to first know what you're doing with your steering inputs, with your driving technique. Because if you don't have driving technique, right, and you don't work on that, then it doesn't matter what you do on the setup, will be always wrong, you know. The guys that may ask their setup and they are aliens or just simply good drivers, right, and they give you their setup and they can do whatever lap time better than you, if you're not driving well, you're driving the same setup, but you're driving different cars. They are driving a completely different car from you because they're doing different things with their inputs. Look again. Releasing the brake, car completely stable. Releasing the brake, car completely stable. This is the aggressive setup. And it is because look at the oversteer I have if I keep my foot down, alright? So again, brake, releasing the brake, lots of turn-in grip, no problem at all, car still stable. Look at this. Let's do this again, one more time. It is very important. I'm losing time on this because it is very important. Braking, releasing, and I'm in, you see? Then I can rotate the car a little bit with the egg in the exit, and I'm out of here. Just like that. Braking, release the brakes, in, you see? So much stability and so much lateral grip. Okay, and this is with a front engine car. This is a front engine car. Let's see this on the replay again. I mean, look at that lap from the inside. Let's toggle the hood so you can have a look. Play back a little bit slower, right? and you can have a look at the throttle and brake. See here, brake, full braking, all right. You see the throttle going up because I'm downshifting. First gear, which is lots of engine, releasing the brakes, the car, all the steering input, and the car doesn't destabilize. You see. So why is this happening? As I said, because obviously the setups are proper and the aerodynamics do their work to stabilize the car. Those cars are extremely sensitive into the ride heights. If you keep braking, the front, the end, the nose will go down, the rear will go up, and this will destabilize your car and make you lose time. If you go off the brakes, then the car will stabilize in terms of rake, okay, and it will stabilize at your at the position that you have aerodynamic balance, right? So don't be afraid of that. Try it. At first, you're gonna be a little bit, wide. Sometimes you're gonna be a little bit off balance, but I can guarantee you that the moment you manage to do it, it's gonna be like clack, like, oh, wait a minute, now it's happened, because you will recognize when it's happening. You will recognize because you're going to be at some fixed steering position. You will go off the brake and the nose will go in, because at that point you are going to let off all the longitudinal grip asking from the tires, and the tires will say, oh, you know what, I have plenty of lateral grip to give you in the nose. Okay, and the same happens on the rear tires, because the rear tires also braking and they ask for longitudinal grip. When you release the brake, the rear tires, instead of sliding away, they will say, oh, you know what, I also have lateral grip, so I'm staying put. Okay, let's do the same one with a tricky car. So the Audi, let's see what the Audi will tell. Or do you guys prefer, I'm here, I'm uh, I'm looking, people asking for the Ferrari, I guess. So let's see the Ferrari what it does. I've never tried it before, but I'm pretty certain it's going to be the same. Okay. So let's see the Ferrari what's going to be.
Right, this session is about consistency. Try to be fast.
Oh, so we have some guys saying first and second gear, aerodynamics don't do shit. It's all mechanical. Grip, cut the bullshit. You know what, my friend? You are completely wrong. I'm sorry, but you have eaten the pill of the commentators of Formula One races, because they are all like, oh, under 120 kilometers per hour, aerodynamics don't do shit. Well, no. Aerodynamics are always present, and they are always changing the balance of the car. And all the turns you do, even the ones in first gear, they are at around 60, 70. I mean, the one of the slowest turns in the whole championship is Prima Variante, the first turn of Monza. And at that turn, you are at around 60 kilometers per hour. All the other turns are higher than that. Higher than that. They are like, 70, 80. And even at 60, I guarantee you, make a car completely unbalanced in terms of aerodynamics. So maybe, I don't know, raise a lot the rear, lower a lot the front, completely eliminate the wing behind, and then come back and tell me that at a first or second gear turn, it's all about mechanical grip. Well, it's not. You're gonna spun. I guarantee you that. All right. So believe me on that. I know. Just trust me. Okay. So let's see what the Ferrari can do with the same technique.
Low tire pressure, stay away from curbs.
Right. So let's go in. Ferrari usually it has a very long gear ratio, so it needs one gear down, and we're gonna do that probably. Second gear, release the brakes, no problem. First gear, release the brakes, no problem. No problem at all. Obviously, yes, the car is much more agile than the Nissan, and you can see how it goes in instantly. You see, release the brakes, in, whoops, went way too hard. So if I went outside, means I was either too fast, because I had a little bit of understeer, or the tires weren't up to the heat anymore, and you can see that they are still a little bit cold. So second gear here, release the brakes, car goes in and stabilizes. You see that it started to sliding a little bit and then it stabilized. Right, cool, right? That's very cool. first gear here, inside. I had to brake a little bit because again I was way too fast. And you will know when this happens, you will know that you did something wrong, right? And when correctly the nose goes in, then you will know that you got everything together. It's not something that I'm telling you now and you're gonna try it and you will be like, oh, I will never be able to do it because even if it happens, I won't understand it. No, I can guarantee you, if you do it properly, you will understand that you did it properly. Okay, so again, second gear, release the brakes, in. I didn't even have to counter, nothing at all. Completely safe. And again here, in, like that. Like that. In, first gear, no problems. Fantastic. And this is where you can also start to understand better what your car does, because you're not fighting the car, you know. You are working together with the car. You see, here I had a little bit of understeer, so I know that the next time I have to make better my turning, or I have to work a little bit on the setup, for example, to make it turn even more than what I want. And so I start hearing you, okay, Aris, how do I do this? Okay, stay with me. So we have the Ferrari, right? Let's work on the Ferrari. No problem. Alright. First gear again. Release the brake, in goes the nose, stabilize the rear end, and out of the turn again. Yeah, nice. So, okay. We did a 35.547. So, as I told you last time, it's not good to just, you know, cut completely the car and go now, so hit ESC now and go to the pits. It's better if you do your lap time again, another lap. You don't have to push as much as before, but do a decent lap so that the tires keep staying on temperature. And instead of completing the lap, we will go inside the pits. So brake here again. Alright, inside, like this. I will go into the pits, and in a moment I will show you what we can start, how we can start working on the car. What's gonna be the first thing to work on your car. Alright? Whoops. I was looking at the chat and I was almost going outside the road. Again, release the brakes, in. You see, even at this very fast turn, no problems at all. Whoa, went completely over the things. Okay, so let's go into the box now. Remember, pit limiter, you have to be in first gear. If you put second gear, the pit limiter automatically disables, because obviously there are many cars that in second gear at 50 kilometers per hour, they might, you know, the engine might die. So this is what happens also the rear cars, only first gear. Right, so we're in the pit limiter, you don't have to go to the pits, you just return to garage. And now we are going to start working. Right, let me have a check on the chat and see what is going on. Okay. Some questions are missing. Many things asking here. Anyway, okay, let's stick to the program, and then I'll tell you to start making questions, and I'll be there for you. So, if we go into the setup, current setup, sorry, I've said that in Italian. So current setup, and what we have here is the last readings, you see, of the tires. So what we are seeking here, you have to know that the best range of pressure. So well, first of all, what is the single thing that makes your car first of all staying on track, and secondly go as fast as possible? The single thing is tires. So the first thing you have to look at on the setup, if you don't have a different setup, if you don't even want to go to the aggressive setup, which has this a little bit covered for you, so you're on the safe setup, you feel the car pretty well, and you want to improve it a little bit. So what you do? The first thing you do is make the contact paths of the tires as good as possible. Not the temperatures, not the cambers, not anything else. The contact paths has to be as wide as possible. And to be as wide as possible, you need the correct pressure. So that's the first thing you have to do. You have to do 3-4 laps, okay? Good laps, no bad sliding, no spinning, no nothing like that. Turn to the pits, press ESC, go in and check the last readings. So what do we see here? We see that the left front is at 27.3 psi hot. So while I was in the track and lapping, the average, the temperature that we read when I've got back to the pits, the pressure was 27.3. Okay, good. As we said, the optimum tire pressure is around 27 and 28 psi. Right? This is the optimum. So you need to stay around 27, 28. Let's make this perfect. So I'm at 27.3 and I want to be 27.5. So I will do 2 clicks on the pressure, on the cold pressure of the left front. So the cold pressure is 25.7. I will do 1, 2, and go to 25.9. Okay? This hopefully, next time I will go out, will bring the left front hot at 27.5. Okay? Right, let's move on the right. On the front right, I have 26.5. Alright? 26.5 means that I am one full psi under the optimum. So I will go in the cold pressure and I will raise it by 1 psi. So 25.7 now, I will go to 26.7. That's it. So when I will go back on the track and I will do my laps, I will get back here to control, and hopefully my right front will be more or less the same as the left front. Same thing to the rear. The rear will have 26.4. So I want to raise that to 27.5 as we said. So I will go from 25.1 cold to 26.1 plus 1, just to be perfect. And on the right rear, again, we are 25.9. So 26, and we go up to 20. What was it? I don't remember anymore. I think it goes like that, and another 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I think I got it right. I'm not so sure. But the whole thing here is that when your tires, so you do asymmetrical cold pressures all around, based on what the last readings of your hot tires are. So the asymmetrical cold pressures means that when you are going around the track and your tires are going to get hot, they will have symmetrical and correct pressures all around in all 4 corners. This is the most important thing. This is the number one thing you have to do with your car. All right? Okay. So let's go back on the track and try it. Okay, let's start. We're gonna do a couple of laps. We're also gonna check if we're faster or not. It's a good thing to see if what we're doing is correct. Alright, so of course, when you start with asymmetrical pressures, you have to be double careful about it, because obviously the car now is not balanced anymore. Okay, so first lap or first 2 laps, be very careful what you're doing. Don't push the car too much, because it's going to be completely asymmetrical. But as the tires heat up, hopefully, if we have done everything correctly, we're going to have a much more stable car with more grip than before. Alright, so let's see. Alright, so you can see already down here on the tire's hood that the tire starts to climb up in their temperature, and the pressures climb up, and they start to get better and better, more similar to each other. And I can tell you also that the car is already more stable. So look at this now. We have just small difference at the rear and identical at the front. Right? So already at the first lap this. So now the car is completely balanced. And as you can see, I'm also gaining a little bit, even if I'm driving worse than before. Look at that. Look at the stability I have and how fast I can go on the accelerator. Yeah. I'm gaining. I'm gaining everywhere because I have better grip. Oh, that I overshoot the turn. That was way too hard. I brake way too late for that turn. Release the brakes, go in. And even if I did I messed up completely the last turn, I'm still better than before. Release the brakes and accelerator as fast as I can, because the car permits me to do so. Oh, this is so much more stable than before. And this is it's still the safe setup, right? So that's a setup that it's not gonna give you who knows what, performance, but it's still much better. I'm already at 35.6. Let's do another lap, maybe better this time. Let's concentrate a little bit more. Wow, I'm already 0.2 of a second faster than before. Look at my pressures. They're very good, very, very balanced. Much balanced pressures. I could do the left-right change direction there with much faster than before. I already missed again this. So bad. Anyway. 2 out of 2, which means I'm doing something terribly wrong there. Next time I have to be more careful. You see, release again the brakes and go on the accelerator. Right. Alright. Oh, that goes so much better than before. And it goes so much better that I arrived so much faster that I couldn't make the brake zone. That's okay, that's okay. Yeah, I've lost everything, but who cares? Okay, so you saw that I was faster, I've lost everything. So let's cool down a little bit and go in and check our tires right now, okay? So return to garage.
Alright, this session is about consistency. Try to be fast without
Setup,
going over the limit.
current setup again, and let's see what we have here. So hot, now the situation is much more close than before. So we have just 0.1 difference here and 0.3 difference here. You see, 28.1, 27.8. So we'll do again the same thing and we'll try to improve. So how can we improve? It's a little bit too high of a pressure. So we will lower it a bit. So one click less, so hopefully this and this will be identical on the next lap. And then we will go down by 5 to try and get 27.5 on both of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 again. Okay? Good. So 21.8. Let's try to get down to 27.5. So 6 clicks here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And here we need just 3 clicks. 1, 2, 3. That's all we do. That's all we do. We're trying to make a complete balance of our tires. All right. Back in again. We'll try to do 2 laps and see. Whoops. All right. Whoa. So you're asking me why my lap times are like in real life? Because I have 60 liters of fuel and I'm playing it safe. I'm not trying, amazingly fast setups, and it's also pretty cool. In real life, the temperature was way over 30 degrees in 2018 and in 2019 too. Also in 2018 and 19, we had some showers, and the truck was, I won't say completely green, but almost, because it was cleaned completely by the showers the day before. You also have to remember, guys, that the qualifying sessions in the Blancpain, they do not allow for refueling, so they have to put all the fuel they need for the qualifying sessions. So it's not like, okay, let's go out with 10 liters, put fresh tires, do the lap of the death, and that's it. No, they have to stay very careful, because obviously here you saw that if you get a curb badly, it could also damage your car in real life. And they have the whole fuel they need, so they have at least 40 to 50 liters of fuel, and the tire sets are limited, so they have just one tire set to make their lap time. So they're pretty much in the situation where am I. That's why they're doing this kind of laps. Obviously Alliance is gonna be faster by 1 or 2 seconds, but that's about it. Whoops. You see? Get those sausages and the car is completely out of shape. So let's see if our tires are starting to get the proper heat and temperature and pressure. Seems like it. We're at 27 pretty much everywhere right now. Yes, I know, mate, that some teams go under 1.8 bar. It's also true that lots of those teams also get, their tires exploding. And it's also true that Pirelli specifically told us that these are the pressures that they ask for, and that's what we should do as proper, because they don't want to have explosions and stuff like that. Now, nobody is going to tell you something if you run your tires at 1.8. probably it might work even here. Who knows? But you have to find the correct conditions because the whole pressure situation is dynamic. It's not something that is written in a script, you know. Okay, so let's see in this lap what we can do. Our tires are getting better and better. We are very close to 27.5 right now. Oh, I'm so bad in this turn. I don't know why today. Let's go here again. Just not concentrated at all. But anyway. Many of the setups that you have here as especially aggressive setups, they are very close, if not identical, to the setups that some teams you know, use in the real race, or at least they have as options. So guys, believe me, the setups that you have in, especially the aggressive setups, you should use them, you know. And if you also ask for aliens, they will tell you that maybe with some exceptions, most of them, the setups that they create, they are not that far away from the aggressive setups. So if you see that you're losing much time, it's not the setup, guys, it's all the driving. But again, as we said, setup is also have to do with how comfortable a driver feels to work with the car. So if you want to change it, that's what we're talking here and discussing, so that you can have some, you know, some things to work with. All right, so what we did decent lap times. We are doing decent lap times, and we have our tires in a decent range. Okay, so once you have your tires in a decent range, this is the correct time to start working with the rest of the setup. All right, so let's do this final lap. All right, not too shabby, as they say. Right, okay. So 35 low. We could, if we push a little bit, we can do it in 34, and then start to get harder, so you can do it 33s and so on. So let's go back to the garage and right. So current setup. As I told you, the first thing to do is find the correct pressures. All right, find the correct pressures. Once you have the correct pressures, you will also feel the car more stable, both in left and right. Now, advanced setup. Uh, the better you get as a driver, the more you can put slight differences in the tire pressure to make the car do whatever you want. This is fine tuning, though. You have done all the rest of the setup, you have found solutions, and you want to do something extra. Right, so for example, you have the car that is perfect on the right turns, but on the left turns, you would like a tiny bit more turning in or oversteer on gas, etc. You can create difference on the tire pressures left and right, so that you have a little bit of different left and right pressures, and the car, it will turn into that direction or the other. But again, this is really fine tuning. Think of it as, you know, a tank, as uh, uh, the part that has more radius in the tires, so more pressure, will turn easier towards the other direction. So you have more pressure on your right tires. You will have more turn grip on going left and on the other way around. Anyway, again, fine tuning. Don't think of that instantly. It's the last thing that you should do. Um, all right, so you did you did the tire pressures. You're happy about that. You can start also watching a little bit on the temperatures if you see way too different readings here. So if the difference is more than 5, more than 8, because those are averages in the tire carcass, skeleton, or whatever you want to say it. So it's between um, the surface and the inner pressure. If you see much difference than 10, then you start having issues. You have too much camber, or you have too much stow. You have to understand what's happening there. So as long as the difference is about 5 to 8, you're good. Stay there. All right. You did your pressures. Next thing to do, and that's the last thing we're gonna talk to today. Next thing to do is aero. You go to the aero, and as we said last time, you start working with the right head. So what's the rule of thumb? The rule of thumb is usually the cars are limited in the right head, especially at the front, because they don't want the cars to generate too much downforce. So the best way to generate as much downforce as possible is to go at the front right head as low as possible. Okay, that's the rule of thumb. There is some deviations in some cars where you need a little bit higher or a little bit slower, but generally this is what you want to do. And to do so, you are going to do the same at the rear. No, not exactly. Well, the first thing is you have to have a look at what is the front area variation here. So it's minus t.1. So I'm going to put the front all the way down to 55 millimeters, and I will work with the rear to arrive to somewhere closer. And if I can't, I'll have to raise, the rear wing. So in this scenario, the rear wing gets way too high. So I will go back again. I have quite a difference here. You see, everything is a minimum, and I have a difference because I was a minus 2.1 and now I'm on minus 1.5. All right. And I'll try to see, because we know that we're in the safe setup, so we need a little bit more front end bite. So I'll try it like that and see what I can do. So first rule of thumb is get the front as low as possible, and then adjust the rear and the rear wing to get the front aero variation pretty much the same value as before. Okay? All right. Let's go for a ride and see what we've done. I don't know. It might be too oversteery, or it might be too understeery. Let's see. That feels pretty cool already. Right. Oh, that's a lot of turning. Had to be a little bit careful too. Look how it follows the line without issues here. Yeah, way too late. But newfound grip, and I've managed to do the turn on cold tires. And even if I start my braking zone way too late, whoa! Now that starts to get interesting now. Because as we said, lowering the front end, we generate quite a bit more downforce than before. This is where the difficult thing is going to be. This is a very difficult turn. Yeah, no, I'm wide, no problems. just wanna see what we're doing here. Already 35.5. This is ridiculous. You see how much more grip I have. And I'm already faster than before. Release the brakes as we said. A little bit too wide here. I was way too fast. But that's okay. We'll fix it. That's cool. Oh yeah, look at that speed that we've managed to pull through that sector. Brake, brake, brake. In goes the nose, and I can go on the accelerator much faster than before. And I'm already half a second faster than before. I was a little bit too fast here, so I had to wait a little bit too much, which is terrible because on that straight line you need all the power in the exit, but still faster than before. And this is all thanks to the extra grip we found, because we're generating much more downforce right now. Go in. Not driving very well, but you get my point here. The car is so much faster than before. Oh, I missed that. That's a pity because we could have done easily a 34. Anyway, you got the situation. We could have easily done a 34 right now. And all we did was take care of the pressures of the tires, right? Let's go back to the garage.
This session is about consistency. Try to be fast,
And
limit.
here are our tires working very well. 27.4, 27.5, 27.5, 27.4. Perfect. And then we just lowered the right head and we've got tons and tons of downforce. We were a little lucky because we didn't have to do anything else because the aero balance was good already. But again, I remind you, if your aero balance is not correct, play a little bit with the right head front and rear, and with the rear wing to get the air balance more or less where you like it. So if you have too much oversteer, raise the nose 1 or 2 clicks, again 1 or 2 clicks, not more, or lower the rear 1, 2, or 3 clicks. Okay, the rear is more fine-tuning, the front gives more difference. Okay, so oversteer, raise the front, lower the rear. Understeer, lower the front if possible, raise the rear, and you can also play with the rear wing. Again, less rear wing, more oversteer, more rear wing, less oversteer, or more understeer. Another thing to remember, the rear wing also acts as a balance, right? The rear wing always gets clean air, whatever the rake and the pitch of the car. So the more rear wing you have, no matter what is your right head, okay, or your rake, the more rear wing you have, the less pitch sensitive the car will be. So more rear wing, no matter what the balance, the car will be less pitch sensitive. So when you're braking and turning, you'll have less issues of controlling if you have lots of rear wing. Okay. The less rear wing, the car will be much more pitch sensitive. So you might even have a situation where you have your car like this, so way too high at the front and way too low at the rear. So normally the car will be very understeery, right? And even if you have very low rear wing and you have something like this, the car will still be very understeery, so to say. But the moment you go on the brakes and turn in, the car will be unstable because the low rear wing will make the car much more pitch sensitive. So even little differences in the pitch will make the car way more unbalanced. Okay, right. So I think this is it for tonight, for the things that I wanted to explain. If you have some questions, I would gladly go into it. Okay, so let's see what we can do. So, are you aiming to get the lowest percentage of the aerial variation? No, 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 not at all, not at all. Your aim should be to find an aero variation that you can feel the car safe for your driving, and you do that usually at the most hard turn, which at Misano, for example, is that very fast right-hander where you're also braking. This is where you should understand if the car is unbalanced or if you can keep it. If you can keep it, that is your aero variation that you can work with. Okay, so find the aero variation that you can work and drive the car, and whatever you do on the ride heights, try to maintain that aerial variation, not go too much over it or under it. That's what it's not an indication of if you do more downforce or not. It's an indication of where the balance is front and rear. So when it says that the balance is more to the front or to the rear, that means that you move the balance. So more balance to the front, so more positive numbers or less negative numbers, and the more pointy the car will be. More balance to the rear, so more negative numbers, and the more understeery the car would be. Find the exact number that you like and stay there around. Okay? Right. Um, Yes, telemetry readings can give you some hints on where to find the maximum grip. It's something that we will look further forward because it's much more advanced. Does raising the rear wing reduce speed? Yes, of course, a lot. The rear wing is the main creator of resistance. You know, the higher the rear wing, the more aerodynamic resistance you have, and the lower your top speed. So there is always a compromise you have to do. Pop, 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 pop. Is it possible to stall the rear wing at high rake setting? On some cars, it is possible. On some other cars, usually the manufacturers try to not make this happen, which means that if they see that you go up to here, I don't know, 14, right? If they see that the wing stalls at 15, 16 degrees of angle, then they won't even make it available there. On some cars, though, you are going to see some reduced efficiency, which means that you will go from 10 to 11 and it gives you, I don't know, 10% more. To 12, 20% more. You go to 13 and it doesn't give you 30% more, but it gives you 25. You go to 14 and it gives you 39, or 38. It doesn't give you the whole efficiency, but it generates even more drag. So this might happen, but if it happens, it's only on the very last numbers. Um, how big is the downforce you gain from raising rear height compared to the wing? Uh, that's a tricky question because it's not the same. You get into a car like the old Aston Martin with the V12, which has practically no rear diffuser at all, and you raise the rear of the car and nothing happens practically, and it's all down to the rear wing. You go into a car like the Ferrari, which generates massive amounts of downforce from the diffuser, and the wing plays obviously a lot of importance, but it's 50-50, so to say. You know, so it's not an easy answer. It really depends a lot of the car. Let's see what else do we have here. Uh, how to approach the setup for a lot of curbs or bumps with a car that doesn't have fast fast upper settings. Well, pretty much all the cars have fast upper settings, and I know that some cars normally and homologation papers say that they don't have fast damper settings, and we have them for all. But there is an explanation why we have them for all. Practically all the teams can open, the dampers and change the valves inside. Okay, so the homologation remains, but the graphs of the valves are different, which means that the teams can generate pretty much whatever graphs they want. They might have, I don't know, 40 clicks or 10 clicks, but if a team want to generate a specific graph, they put the damper of the dyno, they change the small valves inside it, and they generate exactly the graph that they want. And this is one of the reasons that we didn't overcomplicate the systems of the dampers and gave you the possibility to change the fast dampers pretty much in all the cars, because in reality this is more or less what is happening. So what to do on the bumps? Well, it depends. Obviously you want the car to absorb the bump. So logic says, okay, let's put the fast bump very soft, and then uh, put the fast rebound in a way that it doesn't let because when the suspension, you have the top of the suspension, the down of the suspension, right? So bumps arrive, the suspension comprises, goes into compression like this, and then goes down because obviously the spring goes to release the energy. Okay, so to absorb the bump, the curb, you want to have the fast bump damping soft enough so that it can compress and absorb, and then you want to have the fast rebound stiff enough so that it doesn't decompress very fast and makes the car jump, right? But there is always a compromise, because if you have the fast bump way too smooth, way too soft, the suspension will compress way too much. Okay, and if it compresses way too much, you have two issues. First, the spring accumulates tons of energy because there are very stiff springs. There you also have the bump stops too, so that's more extra stiffness. So the spring generates way too much energy, and this energy gets released going down and to the chassis too, which now we have chassis flex, yay, and that makes the car become even more bouncy than what you expected and you hoped for. Um, and the other thing is that if you let the suspension absorb all the bump, then ideally the car height will remain the same, which means that if you're running very low, you might touch the curbs. And I don't know if that happens to you, but I will demonstrate to you very easily here. So let's quit and get the Audi. The Audi is notorious for this thing. Now with the chassis flex, it's a little bit better, but I believe that you guys remember that the Audi curbs were pretty nasty thing. So let's go back in, uh, and I'll show you
This
this
session
thing
is
very
about
very fast.
consistency.
Let's
Try to
get
be
the
fast,
aggressive
change too
setup.
much over the limit.
Let's go as slow as possible, even lower here. There is an explanation, as you can see, that we weren't so low here. No, we were a little bit higher. So let's go as low as possible and see what happens. I will be very fast on explaining this because it's a nice question. It's good to have. Okay, let's move on. I will explain the other questions in a minute. Just give me a second to demonstrate this tricky little bastard. All right, let's go in. Of course, our tires are not yet very hot, so we don't have the maximum lateral grip. So let's hope that the phenomenon I want to show you will manifest itself. So in we go, like that, as fast as we can. Oh, didn't really touch a lot, but I will show you from the outside what is happening here. I didn't really make it perfect, but let's see what we can do. All right, so what I'm gonna do here is go in the car, go outside like this. Whoops. Oh, that is. So look how low the car is. And this is a high curb here in the middle, and you have to cut it if you want to do proper lap times. So what happens now is that you see how close I am. All right. So if I get the wrong curbs, if I am in the wrong position, okay, while I'm over this curb, here the car will touch down because the suspension will absorb everything. The car height will not go up, and it will touch down, and it will touch down just at the rear, and it will make the car terribly unstable, and you're going to have those snap oversteers that the Audi is famous for. So you need to find a compromise between ride height and fast bump stiffness, because you don't want the bump to absorb everything. You want the car to raise a tiny little bit in such situations and don't go so low as normally. Okay, so I hope this is clear for you. Right. Let's see what else. Does lowering the ride height change the relation with the suspension? No, that's the magic of Assetto Corsa Competizione. So, as you know, Assetto Corsa 1,
Right.
if
This
you
session is
would
about consistency.
change
Try to
your
be fast,
setup
but don't
ride
overdo it
height,
a little bit.
the you would change the ride height, and obviously the suspension would go up, right? And all your alignment would change. So camber, toe, because obviously all of that is dynamic. So you go up, and everything changes, and you have to go back again and remember, oh, this I wanted to be minus 3.4 instead of 3.6, and change the whole thing again and do the whole situation. That was Assetto Corsa 1. So for Assetto Corsa Competizione, we thought, also talking with the engineers, that because of the complexity of the setup of the cars, even if they have less parameters to change, the cars are so sensible that it pays to have not having values out of where you wanted them. So we talked with engineers, and the race engineers told us, "No, you know what? I have the setup paper, and I'm gonna tell to the mechanics that, all right, I don't want the ride height at 66 anymore at the back. I want it at 60. Way too much of a change, but I want it at 60. And I will give the paper to the mechanics. Now, the paper will hate me, of course, because they have to do a lot of work. What does that mean? It means that they have to take the ride height back to 60 and then go back to the paper and read, okay, what was the camber at the rear? Minus 3.2. They have to regulate again the camber to the initial value. So when the engineer says, I want this ride height, the mechanics have to change everything around the car, in the alignment, in the springs, and everywhere, in the way, so that there is no, for example, preloading on the springs. Everything has to be at the same exact situation as it was before the change, except the ride height. And Assetto Corsa Competizione, behind everything you see here, it has lots of complex work made by Fernando Barbarossa, a great guy, great developer. We work together so that every click you do behind the code makes all the adjustments needed to keep all your alignment the same as before. This is very, very important. Okay. And that is why we did the fuel load test, which is something that we're gonna explain in a later stream. But that helps you also to understand what the car will do if it's very light on fuel or if it's very high on fuel. We will talk about that in a different stream. As you can see, it's disabled right now because it is only available during practice sessions, not during hot laps, not during hot stints, and not during qualifying sessions. Okay. All right. So next question: can decreasing front rebound setting decrease power understeer? Not exactly. Not exactly. Again, this is more advanced. We will talk about that in a different stream, but this is advanced. But I will tell you just thing. It would, and it is a rule of thumb of setup of car setups, for cars that have only mechanical grip or low aerodynamics. In this era of high aerodynamics, keeping the correct ride height is of the utmost importance. What does that mean? It means that if you lower your um, front rebound setting, it will let the front end raise, and if it raises up, it means that you get your aero balance moved to the back, so you have more aero back and less aero for front, and you're gonna have more understeer. Obviously, on very slow speeds, the effect will be less and might help you in a different way. So it might be that the the mechanical grip is more important in very slow speeds. It's not always the case, but to medium to high speed, it's probably going to be worse. But that's again much more advanced. We will talk about this later. So let's focus on what we talked about today. All right, a couple of more questions, guys, because it's getting late and I'm tired. Right, so some setup right on the front bump stops for optimal aero, like a Monza. So some setups ride on the front bump stops for optimum aero, like on Monza. Well, I can tell you, not only at Monza, everywhere, everywhere. How does the sim still maintain any form of grip, say around the corner, when it is so close to bump stops? Here, first of all, thank you for the question because it is also an occasion for me to explain how much work we did on Assetto Corsa Competizione and how going in even farther into realistic physics practically forced us to create more advanced suspension simulation. So here's the situation. In Assetto Corsa 1 and other old generation sims that I know, um, bump stop means a linear value. Uh, you arrive at the bump stop in Assetto Corsa 1. We had a stiffness value, okay, and that was it. So suspension with the spring, 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 stiffness, as you know, arrive to the bump stop, pump, instantly much higher stiffness, instantly, and that would be, okay, which means that when you were on the bump stop, riding on the bump stop, the mechanical grip was greatly compromised, right? So in Assetto Corsa 1, you would try to maintain as much possible suspension movement before hitting the bump stop, or only hit the bump stops if you didn't have any other solution, right? Now, we know from the telemetry, from the feedback from the engineers, that since the 90s, since the 80s, no, since the 90s, GT1 cars, already very high downforce cars, they would practically ride on the bump stops, especially at the front, practically always on the front. Always, always. Every single situation, they would be on the bump stops. We were like, how is that possible? Can't be happening. There's something we are doing wrong, or there's something that they don't tell us, because we know that if we ride on those very stiff bump stops on the simulator, the mechanical grip says hi and so long, and we won't be seeing again. So what's going on? So we didn't know what was the explanation exactly. We know that something was missing, but we didn't know. So here comes Assetto Corsa Competizione. We create the first code for the new aerodynamic simulation that, as you all know by now, is very, very sensitive in pitch. So as the front goes towards as the front goes lower to the ground, it generates way too much downforce, and at the same time, it removes downforce from the rear. It's not like that. Okay, the front generates more downforce, the rear goes up, generates less downforce. This was happening in Assetto Corsa 1 already, but now in Assetto Corsa Competizione, it also simulates the flow. So not only generates more downforce at the front and less downforce at the rear, but the whole downforce also moves, the point of pressure moves towards the front, and that is what is generating the whole instability. So when that went into the simulator and I started trying the first car, the car were undrivable, completely undrivable, terrible, terrible, terrible. They would, spun in every braking zone, turning in, instant spin. I was like, oh my god, what is happening? And then I remember that, oh, wait a minute, they told me always that the real cars were always on the bump stops. So let's try this, right? So I tried the bump stops, and the car was more stable, but even more terrible. Because what was happening was that the car would stabilize and then would slide away in a complete understeer. Every little bump would mean understeer, understeer. You were going on the accelerator and the roll, if there was, again on the bump stop on the outside, terrible power on understeer, a mess, a total mess. So I was trying to understand, and I've noticed that all the bump stops uh, in uh, in real life, they are not a fixed value. They are a graph, and it's not even linear. It's like hyperbolic. So they start very soft, and as they compress more and more, they gain stiffness more and more. They are not linear. They are not fixed. They have a graph like that, like this. So I talked with Stefano and he said, all right, let's try to simulate this and let's hope for the better, because I don't know what else to think about it. So we simulate that, and this is what you are changing in the rate, and instantly the car became way much more drivable. So yes, you are on the bump stops all the time, but the bump stops do not have a fixed stiffness. They're not even linear. They are very, very gradual going up. So you can stay up there, and if you are going way too much, they will keep the car from going too much in too much pitch. They will eliminate the pitch up to a point. But then when you are inside the turn or you are accelerating, they are much more less stiff. They are much more softer, and that gives you back the mechanical grip that you need so the car can turn around, right? Okay. Uh, bu- 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 uh, all right. Okay. Mixed conditions, wet, dry setup. Let's say, I don't know. We will talk about this later. All right. Okay. So in another maybe stream. I think, guys, we've done another 2 hours stream again, I believe, right? So let's call it a night at this point. Thank you so much for being here. Please let me know in your comments. Please subscribe on the channel. Let's raise a little bit the number of subscribers and views, so we can, if the format you like it and think that it is useful for you, let's also spread the word to the other sim racers that use Assetto Corsa Competizione. I believe even sim racers that use other sims can improve their driving by looking at this kind of streams. And well, that's all. Thank you so much, and see you next time. Bye.